Luchasaurus, and that's Jungle Boy. You need to check out All Elite Podcast.
We are the Lucha Brothers, and you listen All Elite Podcast.
You know why?
Hey, this is Cole Cabana. Check out the All Elite Podcast. All Elite.
This is Sammy Guevara, the best ever. And you, yes you, need to go check out All Elite Podcast.
Myself, the man with the huge effort arms, Brian Cage. You're watching the All Elite Podcast. Who better?
Welcome back, All Elite family, to another exciting edition of the All Elite Podcast. As always, I'm your host, All Elite Andy, and I'm joined by my boy, Big Match AJ. We are fresh off of AEW Revolution. What an exciting show, top to bottom. There was some stuff to talk about, top to bottom. Definitely, for sure. AJ, how you doing before we get into all that?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm doing real good. I did enjoy the show very much. I thought the whole thing was great, not top to bottom. But
I didn't
that's
say
just
it was
me.
great top to bottom. I said there's stuff to talk about top to bottom.
That's very true. But honestly, I do think it was almost great top to bottom, sans what we just saw moments ago. But really, I don't care that much. So, really a good show. I don't have a lot going on, but except for what just happened.
Yeah, the show definitely closed on an anticlimactic note, to say the very least. We expected a major explosion. There was no major explosion. It was, I mean, we have to talk about that first, right? I mean, there's no sense in really talking about anything else beyond that, because it was so, I thought that we were going to be talking about a really crazy, awesome moment. Instead, it was just kind of a letdown. I'm not mad at him for it, though.
No, I'm sure, there's a limited amount of explosives you're allowed to use around people that they could legally get away with. So they probably couldn't make the ring fucking shake no matter what they were able to do. And generally, honestly, the big explosions at the end of those death matches are always weak.
Mm-hmm. You're right there 100%. They are generally pretty weak explosions overall. So I'm not upset about it at that point. I also think that there could have been some technical difficulties here. They might have just had an issue or two. So it was very anticlimactic. We had an insane match, pretty much a crazy show from top to bottom, very exciting moments throughout, and kind of anticlimactic. I don't want to be down on the show, though, so we're not going to focus too much on the anticlimactic stuff. Not going to focus on that really too heavily at all.
No.
Before we jump into the show, before we ran the show, or before the show happened, we ran a tweet on Twitter that was going to be for a selection of a Rio figure, a Rio AEW figure, AJ. So I have the randomizer set up. I want to do this before we jump into the show. That way we get this out of the way. So I'm going to pull it up. You can't see it, my friend, but I've got it set up. Give me just a second.
But I'm on the edge of my seat.
You are on the edge of your seat. Let's go ahead and randomize. We had quite a few people retweet on Twitter for an opportunity to get this Rio figure. Let's go ahead and randomize it. And Brandon391, number, you have won the Rio figure. I will reach out to you in a little while after this episode of the podcast. But shout out to you. We appreciate you retweeting. We appreciate everybody for participating in that giveaway. We're going to be running a giveaway with some of our commenters as they stream in to YouTube. If we don't get any commenters on YouTube, though, we'll find another way to give away some figures. There's always a way to give away figs, AJ. That's going to be the new gimmick of the All Elite Podcast. I've got figs to give away. So if you follow us and listen to us weekly and want to win a figure, then tweet at us, because that's another way to do it. Go ahead and tweet directly at us, at All Elite Podcast. Let us know you tuned into this episode, and that will also get you an opportunity, because I got a couple figs to give away. So keep that in mind. Let's talk about the show, AJ. Let's talk about the pay-per-view. Maki Ito replaces Rebel in the beginning of the show. This was such a crazy way. This was the most exciting moment for me. I tweeted out as a joke that it was all downhill from here after that, and I'm not saying it was all downhill from here, but in terms of stuff that naturally surprised me, this was it. When Maki Ito came out, I did not expect this.
Yeah, because, I want to say, I was so surprised about Christian. I wasn't surprised, because I was kind of expecting it, but because that was Dave Meltzer's pick, so I'm thinking that's who's most likely it's going to be. So, and it wasn't like I was sure it was going to be Christian, and we'll get to there, but it was in the back of my mind. Maki Ito, no fucking clue. That was great.
Yeah, I had predicted that Rebel wasn't going to be in the match.
Yeah.
And there was some rumblings about it on Twitter beforehand and stuff, so it wasn't just a natural idea of mine. But it was interesting to see that happen. And it was shocking, literally shocking to see Maki Ito become involved in this match, and then they pick up the victory over Rio and Thunder Rosa. This was such a fun way to start off the event in general, and it wasn't even part of the official pay-per-view. You could watch this match for free on YouTube. This was so smart. I thought this really elevated the pre-show in my eyes. The next pay-per-view, I will anticipate another very good match for the pre-show. It doesn't have to have an exciting debut or anything like that, but just a solid match, because they gave us a solid match, too. It was entertaining top to bottom.
Very good match, and Maki Ito was very fun in the match, specifically to me. But everybody really killed it, and it was a really well done performance. I mean, I can't think of a thing to complain about with it. So yeah, you're right. It was a very good match. I wasn't thinking about it like, oh, this is a very good match while I was watching it, but now that you say that, I'm retroactively, yeah, that's very true. Because I was all just excited over Maki Ito. I wasn't really, I guess, thinking about it.
I was very excited over Maki Ito because, again, it was just not something I had expected. I thought, and I tweeted out, either Tony Khan had great foresight to know that Maki Ito was going to get over immediately, or he saw the reception on social media and acted immediately and gave the fans exactly what they could want in a very surprising moment to kick off the pre-show. I thought this was very well done.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Then they opened up the show with a very solid tag team title match. The Young Bucks retaining over MJF and Chris Jericho. What did you think of this match, AJ?
Really good. Really, really good. I think it was I was thinking the ladder match should have opened, or the tag team battle royal, but I wasn't upset with this opening because this actually really delivered more than I thought it was going to, and really had me on the edge of my seat the whole way through.
Yeah, I think that they did a good job with this match. There wasn't really anything I could complain about. I thought it was a very entertaining match. I definitely didn't get my prediction in Sammy Guevara getting involved and MJF and Jericho picking up the victory here. That was not the case. Instead, the Young Bucks, like I said, retaining after a super kick party to MJF and then Jericho, and then hit the Meltzer driver for the pin. This was fun, man. This was a good opener, a really solid tag team match. I had kind of scoffed at there was a report that came out earlier in the week that the Young Bucks either wanted to open or close the shows because they intended to have very stellar matches. And I believe it, but it just seemed like a snarky thing to say or do. But the match, I understand now. And watching the match, like, as I watched it, I was like, okay, this was a really entertaining match. I understand wanting this to go on first. So,
yeah, no, I do too. I thought out of like all the matches, the retro, like thinking about it retroactively, this definitely was the right pick for an opener.
Yeah. We do have some people tuned in on Periscope, so if you're tuned in on Periscope or Twitter, go ahead, throw some comments in there. Get an opportunity to win this Dustin Rhodes figure as we're talking about the show. Let us know what you think about some of these matches. The next match we have to talk about, we might have to spend a couple minutes on this Battle Royal. What did you think about this Battle Royal? I think they did a great job with the Casino Battle Royal, this new format of it. I think it works really well with tag teams, no?
No, really good. I mean, it was a Royal Rumble, right? I mean, we don't have to beat around the bush, bush around the bush. But it was a Royal Rumble, and that works fucking perfectly. Like, don't mess with success. It's a great way to do a match, and this was a great match. I really thought, like, there were a few tag teams that shined, but like, I'm glad Phoenix and Penta came out on top because they look really good in this match.
Phoenix and Pac, you mean? But yes.
Phoenix and Pac, yes, sorry.
Yeah, I'm glad that they came out on top. That was essentially what I had expected, was those two to pick up the victory. But what I didn't necessarily expect was them to kind of make stars in the same way that you see in the Royal Rumble with John Silver and Jungle Boy both looking really, really strong just before getting eliminated. Jungle Boy especially, but I think they both had really solid moments in this Battle Royal. This was really good, I think. And then obviously QT Marshall sort of turning heel, as I had also predicted in the last couple of weeks. So,
yeah, QT Marshall did in fact turn heel, which I felt like
justifiable.
Yeah, justifiable for sure. And I'm fine with it happening, but I don't know if I would have done it here. I would have built up to it more.
Yeah, I can understand that, but at the same point, like, there's just a point with, you don't have to do it with a huge build and a huge climatic the same way you see every other time, because then it becomes cliche if you do it all the time. So with this being kind of subtle, it works and it makes sense. And like I said, QT is going to make a great heel, especially if that's the direction they let him go in, and that's kind of what it seems like with this. He eliminated the Gun Club, who were part of the Nightmare family. Dustin Rhodes obviously had an issue with this, and QT just eliminated himself. He was like, fuck this. If you guys... He's just tired of it. He's tired of being a goody two-shoes, playing by Cody's rules. I think this is going to be great. I think that QT is going to make a much better heel, and seeing his work on Sammy Guevara's vlog, and then what they've been able to do to play it into Dark, I think has been really great. So... But yeah, the Battle Royal is awesome. I think that the official victory with Pac and Phoenix winning is something I'm very excited about, because I want to see these guys go in a tag team match against the Young Bucks. I'm excited to see how this could play out.
And I'm excited for that match they announced for Dynamite. I think it's Matt Jackson versus Phoenix, right?
Yeah, well, you would know better than I do, because I did not know that was a match announced, but that is exciting. I'm excited to see them building up to this instead of rushing directly to the tag match, giving it a little bit of time to build, because that's cool as well. This is going to be a really good tag team match. I think it's one of the better matches they can put on, especially because Pac and Phoenix aren't going to team for a long time, you wouldn't anticipate. So this is a good way to get that match in pretty quickly.
Yeah, and you would just expect that all these guys would have really good chemistry, and I'm assuming they will.
Yeah, I agree. And also another thing I guess worth noting during this match, Jack Evans, I believe, attacked 10, so kind of continuing the thing with Matt Hardy trying to screw over the Dark Order during this. Yeah, this was a pretty solid Battle Royal. I think a lot of guys came out of this looking well. I think some teams we might have expected to look better didn't. I thought Bear Country looked weird because they're typically more babyface team, but we're playing a little bit more of a heel character in this. But they did get spots where they were very much like a focal point of the Battle Royal, which is important.
Yeah, no, I thought they looked all right. Honestly, I'm not gonna lie. Around when Bear Country came out, my stream was having issues. So, but what I saw them later on in the match, I thought they were looking okay. So I couldn't really tell you.
Yeah, and again, they never looked bad. It was just they definitely went in a different direction creatively than we've seen with them up to this point. They were just much more heelish characters. Which, if that's the direction they're going, that's fine by me. They also, at one point, Tony Schiavone had me convinced SCU was going to win, because he started talking about how does this Battle Royal count towards if they're going to be a tag team. And Excalibur,
I wasn't sure about that
Excalibur was like, no, obviously not. And I was like, oh, are they trying to tell the story that SCU is going to win this Battle Royal, and that's how they set up the match? I just didn't want that to be the story coming out of this, and I'm glad it wasn't.
I gave bad information to my friend, because I was like, I guess they're broke, because like the stream broke, and then it went back, and then they were gone. So I was like, I guess they're not a team anymore.
Wow. Fake news, AJ. Nah, they're still a team. Excalibur did clear that up for people. Tony Schiavone did have it a little bit confusing there as well. So, no, I think the Battle Royal was super effective. I am excited to see them hopefully continue this format, because they have a super deep tag team division, despite the fact that it did feel like there were lesser known teams at the front of the Battle Royal. That wasn't a problem, because there were still good teams throughout the Battle Royal that it never felt very lacking. And this is something where they didn't have any surprise entrants in this one, which you can then, if you do it again, potentially do a surprise team, which will be totally fresh and new. So this was great. I think this was a really great initiation of a match type that we haven't really seen, but have seen done in ways before. So great job by AEW there. Hikaru Shida retaining the women's championship over Ryo Mizunami. This was not something I had anticipated happening.
Me neither.
This was a really, really good match, but it came in a tough spot on the card. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. Okay, for me, again, that last match fucked up, but so it wasn't as bad for me. But I would agree that the card spot did not behoove this match. And I really think the match was really, really good and were it placed better, it would be received probably better than it's going to be, because these girls were stiff as hell. They went really hard in this match. It was just energy, energy, energy the whole way through, and it was such a strong style, like Japanese style kind of match, and I just loved that. So I was super into it.
Me too. I thought that they did a great job. I thought that it took me a minute to get into it. I'm not going to lie and say that I was super into it from top to bottom, but by the end they had me, and I was definitely into it. But also by the end I could tell that they were just near the end of this match, you know what I mean? I thought that especially Hikaru, it looked like either she was selling really well or like she was just really tired and was struggling to do a couple of moves that I thought she would be able to do.
Yeah, like the Falcon Arrow.
Yeah, 100%. Outside of that, though, this was a like you said, super strong hitting. This was so fun to watch because of that. I thought Rio was going to win for sure. Hikaru Shida picking up the win surprised me. But it just strengthened her current run as champion for me. But post match we have Nyla Rose attack with Vicky Guerrero by her side. We then have Britt Baker and Maki Ito come out as well, just kind of destroying both Shida and Rio before Thunder Rosa can come out and make the save. I was like, okay, this makes sense. You want to let people know you're gonna run a 6-man on Wednesday with these guys, so.
Yeah, and they did announce that 6-man, so that is happening, which makes sense.
You have them in the States, you know, you want to get as much out of them as you can, so at the very least get that 6-man in.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And I thought this was a perfectly fine way to build up to it, and to like get people excited for that happening. So I thought it was perfectly fine.
Yeah, it is kind of interesting to see their pay-per-view events go a little bit more in a direction where there are angles being built. There are sometimes not necessarily clean finishes all the time. It's not an issue, but it is something I've seen. We saw it at the beginning where it was something that never happened, but that's what makes it okay now, is because it isn't something that's constantly happening. You just recognize it now. We had Miro kind of destroy Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy for the most part. Before the match, he destroyed them. Then they won the match. So what did you think of all this? This was relatively short, so it wasn't a whole lot.
I got taken away from the beginning part. I saw him smash his head against the glass, so I'm assuming I'm pieced together what happened following. I didn't know when I came back why Orange Cassidy was gone. But I assumed he was just beaten up. So I thought it was kind of weird not having Orange Cassidy in the match for quite a long time. But he looked good towards the end, and he was cleaning house, and then he got beat, and he totally fucked over Penelope Ford. Like Kip Sabian's not gonna be happy about that.
He's not the best man at all. He's the worst man. He's the worst bro. The worst bro. That was interesting. He shoved Orange Cassidy directly into Penelope Ford, dropping her off the apron. So yeah, he definitely does not give a shit about anyone but himself, and was pretty dominant throughout throughout the match from what I gathered. There were moments obviously where they weren't on top throughout the whole thing, but it wasn't a whole lot. Orange Cassidy still looked good. He had a couple of really strong moments where he did drop Miro with a Superman punch and a couple other cool things, but yeah, they kind of got dominated for the most part in this one. Chuck Taylor forced to tap out, which he was in a tough position, man. This wasn't bad either. It was just for everything else, the importance of everything else on the card. That's what made this good, actually, is it kind of gave you time to just settle down and enjoy a good beatdown.
Yeah, it was actually really fun watching Miro just beat people up. And goddamn, Miro is so good. He is such a great hoss. Like, he throws kicks so well, and he doesn't have to slap his thigh because they look like they're hitting him anyways. And he's just a monster. He's just such a monster, and it's so fun watching him beat people down.
Yeah, and we'll get to it when we talk about Christian signing, but I would love to see Miro just kind of be someone who gets to destroy Christian. There's going to be one superstar who I think gets that opportunity to set up that feud and could really benefit from a feud with a name like Christian. Miro's someone that would work for that for me. Because he's been doing a good job at just these dominating segments where he just destroys. And he, like I said, he looked good. He looked really good in this. Maybe not even from the match itself, just how his build is and everything compared to some of the other superstars on the roster. He just stands
compared
out.
to anyone, his build is pretty impressive.
Yeah, definitely. We had the money match with Matt Hardy taking on Hangman. What'd you
This
think?
was good. I really thought this was gonna be like only kind of average, but I thought this actually went up, and maybe that's why it went beyond my expectations. Um, and yes, I agree, Sam, bro. The would have been almost perfect show if it wasn't for the botched explosion. But I really thought Hangman and Matt delivered, like really brought it. I thought Matt really brought it. I thought Matt was really like flowing with the match and working with Hangman well because Matt can be hit or miss as an in-ring wrestler. Like in his later years, I mean, not when he was a young boy, but sometimes he can be slow or it can like kind of feel like things are clunky, but it didn't feel that way at all in this match. Matt Hardy really brought it.
And that was something we talked about on the show the other day was will Hangman sort of be able to bring that out of Matt Hardy and be able to have a really, really solid match with him? And I think that's what we got here. There wasn't really anything, I think, to complain about. Maybe early on in the match they kind of made the ref look stupid because they were just consistently and that's on some Jim Ross complaining type stuff. But it is worth noting that it was very apparent at the beginning of this one. But the match itself was really solid. Matt never really had those moments that I know what you're talking about where he's not always necessarily on. And that's where, like, again, I guess going to the Christian thing, again, we saw people kind of relate the Matt signing to being the same as signing Christian. But Christian has a much bigger history of being a legitimate workhorse talent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in that case, Matt is a little bit more of touted for his creativity, whereas Christian is legitimately a great worker. Now, Matt ended up having a really solid match with Hangman, so that's not to say Matt can't have great matches, but that's just to say the differences in those signings to me. I think this match was solid. We definitely saw this was the match where it started to stick out to me of, oh, this is a different pay-per-view than maybe we've seen before because there was some shenanigans with the Dark Order and Private Party and everybody getting involved. Private Party initially screwing over Hangman at first before the Dark Order comes out, makes a save, and this gives Hangman the opportunity to win. But this made for a beautiful moment in AEW that I hope they have video packages that play this forever, where Hangman is dropped off the side of the apron by Matt Hardy, and the Dark Order catches him. And if you pay attention, Player Uno at first calls everyone. He's like, "Come on, we gotta catch him." It's like something you'd see in a scene in Toy Story or something where they all gotta come together to catch a character, and it was so beautiful the way they caught him, lifted him back up. He does his finisher.
It was perfect.
The buckshot lariat. It was amazing. It was a perfect finish to that match.
It popped me. I thought that was great. That was fantastic. And then the big group hug after the match. It was wholesome. It was a wholesome wrestling.
The story of Hangman Page, honestly, and I feel like we've paid very specific attention to this because at the beginning, and we're not the only ones, but at the beginning we knew Hangman was someone they had big intentions for. You saw it from the first press conference, so we knew, okay, what are they doing with Hangman Page? There were times where he wasn't even showing up on being the Elite leading up to AEW being a thing. We were like, where is Hangman? We thought the storylines he was getting on being the Elite were kind of the shits. Like, we were pretty critical of it. Now, over time, we've seen that grow and understand the storyline purpose of all of that, his dissension within the Elite, his developing an alcoholism problem almost. Like, there's so much to the depth of the Hangman character that is incredible. Like, if you look at it from a perspective of just storytelling in professional wrestling, it's definitely been done before, but it's kind of insane right now to think of the literal layers of this character as you look from storyline to storyline. Something is consistently being built that he kind of takes on with him to the next storyline. It's very interesting.
I honestly think Hangman Page is the most interesting character AEW has still. And I know that's a high bar considering what they have going on, especially even on this show. But I just think there's so much depth within the Hangman Page person.
Yeah, well, and yes, exactly. And just because it's so, you could see so many similarities to a real person. Like just someone going through shit. And despite being successful in his current path, he still is going through shit, and now he's finally finding that positivity, and hopefully the Dark Order can stay that positivity, but God forbid they turn on him. Like, and that's kind of the natural circumstances, and what kind of tends to happen in stories like this is the people he's going to trust now will end up screwing him over in the long run. We'll see. But this is the story of it is fantastic. I appreciate what they've done with Hangman, and it's not really something I had expected, honestly. When we talked about it early, I didn't think they could naturally make me just believe Hangman is a legit top guy. Over the last year and a half, they have naturally made me believe that. So
Yes,
hats off
I
to them.
completely agree.
The question is, can they do it with Ethan Page? Because he was the surprise entrant in the ladder match. This was an interesting ladder match. There was some parts of this that kind of threw me off. Cody Rhodes being injured and in the tunnel was very distracting for me. But
Yeah.
I wasn't mad at it. I
I
predicted
wasn't
the right
either.
winner too, so there's that.
You did. You got Scorpio Sky dead on, and it made sense. The only other thing that bothered me about this match was the big Sonic ring that was hanging
Wow,
above
you're
it.
hating. You're hating.
I'm a little bit, yeah,
That's
because it's a little nitpicky. I'm not gonna pretend it's not, but I was like, that's a really weird thing to be grabbing. Anyways, that's the only other thing that bugged me, and that's very small. So I'm gonna say I really like this match. This was fantastic up and down. This was really cool. I loved Ethan Page. I thought he looked good. There was one botch with Ethan Page where I was like, oh, that was bad, and I can't even remember exactly what it was. I just remember being like, ah.
It wasn't his fault though. It was when Max tried to flip over him and do the power bomb. Is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah.
Or no?
Okay, so it was Max's. Okay.
And that was a rough spot. And fortunately, they made it out of that smooth because there was like a split millisecond. I was like, oh fuck, this is about to get nasty. But they made it out of that. The fortunate thing with the brass ring is they get that totally forgotten about by the end of the night with that explosion. So no one can even care about the funny looking brass ring. I do agree it looked kind of goofy. You probably could have gone with basically anything else. It's a tough situation. WWE kind of hit the jackpot by using the briefcase thing because the Ultimate X kind of looks funny. The brass ring looks funny. You know, you might as well just do a briefcase like WWE because contracts are hard to take down. So
Yeah, man. I would have preferred a briefcase.
the match itself, though, there were some really good moments. It could have probably benefited from like another vet in here. You take out Max Caster and put in just another Pac, Phoenix, either one of them, like someone else to help kind of carry the load. Cody felt like he was the main guy to just lead the way through this match, and I never really thought he was going to win, so that was kind of strange. And the story that they told with him, I've seen it in so many of these ladder matches. Like Ric Flair's done it, a couple other people have done it where they get beat up, they leave, and then they come back in the middle of the ladder match and still lose. I've seen it. So when it happened with Cody, I kind of knew what was happening, especially when he stayed in the freaking tunnel. It's like that never happens. They never stay where you could see them.
Yeah, he kind of did give away the ending when Scorpio Sky and Cody were up top of the ladder because it's like, of course Cody's not going to win.
Yeah, it was just so... I thought Scorpio winning is cool. I think that they're still kind of going in a direction where it's a little bit more of a subtle heel turn, slow heel turn.
I think so too. They mentioned it on commentary, like he has an attitude change lately, and I was like, okay, good, so it is a heel turn.
And that'll be good for him. And I could see him winning the TNT Championship this Wednesday.
Because Darby's fucked up, dude.
Yeah, Darby is definitely fucked up. He didn't really get too beat up. Well, actually, there was a moment where I was pretty worried about Scorpio Sky. Did you see when Archer dropped him? I think it was Archer dropped him off the top, and he like came down damn near busted the back of his head on the ladder. I was like, wow, man, I'm glad you're okay. But this was a strange ladder match for me personally because I wasn't really pulling necessarily for anyone to win this match. Like even Pentagon, someone I'm a big fan of, he doesn't really have enough of a build for me to want him to win this. So I think Scorpio winning is the best bet. I also think that Ethan Page, despite it being somewhat anticlimactic because I saw it coming from a mile away, was still a good signing. He's still a perfectly fine signing.
Yeah.
I think over time he's someone who will grow on me because I just don't know enough about the guy. He kind of reminds me of a lot of other characters I've seen in wrestling, which is difficult for me because then it feels kind of generic. But We'll
I
see.
just really
I have
like
no
his work
idea.
with the North as a wrestler, and if you could even put him in a tag team again, that would be fine too. But also he's a really good worker in my opinion. He's a good promo, so I just think he's an all around solid signing.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I have to agree. I don't think that there's any negative I could tell you about Ethan Page of they shouldn't have signed him for this reason or that. Like he's going to be a solid worker, and I'm excited to see that probably within 3 months he will grow on me. I will also, I'm not gonna lie, that could become the next gimmick on the podcast. If I hate him, I'm sticking with it. I'm gonna give him time. But if in 2 months I still just am not feeling it, I'm gonna start being a little vocal about it. But for right now, it's a pretty cool signing. I am interested in it. There were a couple names I saw floating around that I thought would have been fun. Like Leo Rush was one that especially stuck out to me, just for especially this match type. But no, overall, good ladder match. Could have been a little bit better, but that was mostly, honestly, the Cody distraction.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. And yeah, this was another thing that kind of confused me though. Jack Evans tried to help Max Caster. There was really no Dark Order presence in this match, so I didn't understand why he would still be helping Max. And then 10 got involved and it was kind of just confusing, but that was nitpicky. Then Christian Cage announced as the signee for AEW. This was speculated throughout the week. This was a very interesting way to do this because they just had him like a countdown. They had him come out. He picked up a contract. He signed it and he left. And, he showed off his T-shirt and he left. This almost made me think that maybe there was going to be another person because there was just very little emphasis on this.
Yeah, he didn't promo or anything. It was weird. He just kind of came out and left, and I was like, okay, I love Christian. I'm down with Christian, but like, it's just like when he debuted with TNA, he cut a promo.
This would have been so much cooler to me with no hype. I wish Big So said nothing. I wish Tony Khan said nothing. I wish no one said anything. I wish that we were just watching this pay-per-view and there was a countdown like this and we were like, what the fuck is going on? And then it was Christian and then we could troll Joseph about how we got Christian and all this instead of the fact that they even had the nerve to put these ideas in our mind or allow the ideas in our mind of some of these obscene names that we totally, even when speculating them, we're like, it makes no sense for it to be Brock, it makes no sense for it to be Punk, it makes no sense for it to be countless other people, but it didn't make a ton of sense for it to be Christian either. So, but just the way that they had hyped it, and it's not to say that Christian isn't to that hype level. It's just a tough situation, you know?
Yeah.
I wish there was no hype. If there was no hype, this would be
would have been
dumb
amazing.
Hype. Yeah.
It would be you would be freaking out about it still probably. But like you're right, without any hype, this would have worked way better. It wasn't bad or anything. It's not terrible. It's not shit. It's just
confusing almost to me. Like I don't even understand what the purpose of hyping it up to this level is.
Yeah.
Because he's a great talent. I anticipate that he will have great matches. Here's the problem though. The idea of signing Christian is because he's a workhorse. He's older. He's like 47, I'm pretty sure. He has been out of wrestling consistently for a couple of years. So you put those two facts together, maybe he doesn't have the great matches people are expecting. I don't think that's the case. No, again, I'm going to say I don't think that's the case. I think he's going to still have pretty solid matches. He's still going to come in and deliver 100%. But that's still one thing like worth noting. He had to retire because of concussions, so it's a difficult situation to say what could happen regardless. I'm excited about this signing. I think this could be very fun. Again, just mentioning some of the names that could beat him up and get over from that, and like the Ricky Starks and even Brian Cage and guys like that. Which are they related? We need to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, we need to find out if he's his dad.
Is he old enough to be his dad?
I think so.
I'll look that up. But I mean, what did you think it could be anybody else really or no?
I thought maybe it would be Kurt Angle if it wasn't Christian.
That would.
And I wasn't like stoked for that or anything, but like I was like, yeah, it could be. I guess I don't know. He's a Hall of Fame talent for sure. So
he's only
that
10
was
years older than Brian Cage, AJ. So you need to relax with the
maybe
with the
he
aging
was
of,
getting it on young.
Jeez, man, I don't know, but I think that there are a lot of talent who will benefit from working with Christian. I think there's a lot of benefits that come from this. The only negative downside, and I know people listen to this podcast before and were like, this was the negative cast, so I get that I'm probably a little bit more negative about this than your general fan is, because I'm down with the Christian signing. It was just hyped up a little too much for me.
Yeah.
Because and I do think they weren't wrong in anything they said. He's like a Hall of Fame worthy talent. He makes sense as one of Tony Khan's favorite wrestlers, all of this stuff. It all makes sense. It's just like, okay. But it is cool that he was just in the Royal Rumble. He just got refreshed into people's minds. Like there's a lot of smart to this signing.
Mm-hmm. So. And also, I hate to say it, but like Edge just came back, so people will be thinking about Christian more.
Do you not feel like in a way that's almost like we still got like it and Christian's great, but isn't it like you got the Christian to Edge, like, and to some people Christian is their, see, this is where I can't talk about it because I'll get people upset, because I get it, Christian is better than Edge to some people, but to someone like me, I think Edge is the better choice. So for me it's like, oh, we brought back Christian, but look they got Edge, that's cool. So it depends on what your take is. There are definitely Edge heads out there, and then there's Christian's peeps, you know what I mean? I was the Edge head, so that's where that problem comes into play. But I do think it's a cool signing. I don't want to downplay it at all like it's not. Christian's a great get. He's going to help elevate talent. He's going to have some good storylines. There's going to be a lot of positives that come from signing Christian. It just becomes now you're limited in how many more of these signings you can make before it becomes weird. You know?
Yeah, no, I know for sure. And it really depends on the signing, really. But like, if it's as big or bigger than Christian, then I think it's fine. But if it's starting to skate the line of TNA shit, then it's a problem. Well,
yeah, and it's not there yet, and I don't want to sound like I think it's getting there yet, but it is. And here's where I want to be cautiously optimistic, and we've talked about it before, of having pro wrestling fan PTSD, of like thinking about how Impact kind of screwed it all up with kind of some of these same guys. I think that AEW will do a better job. Like, this is the ability of having almost some of that great roster mixed with a great roster of today and be able to make something really interesting of it. I think Christian's going to be a great addition. We'll just have to see how they work with it, what their plans are. He could mix it up with pretty much anyone on this roster, and it would be interesting to me. I don't know what his history with Cody is, if he even had any very much interaction with Cody in their time in WWE or not. I can't remember. So, yeah, that's exciting.
I don't think he did. I could be off on that, but I don't think so.
I think they might have crossed paths because they had to have been wrestling at the same time on SmackDown or something, but not prominently. Nothing too big, I don't think so. The next match, the cinematic match, we had Sting and Darby Allin pick up a victory over Brian Cage and Ricky Starks, two guys I was just really talking about. This was really good. Sting picking up the victory with a Scorpion Death Drop to Ricky Starks. At one point, they tossed Darby Allin through through a glass like door. Darby did a coffin drop off of like some huge platform through a platform. It was freaking insane. This was really great. This was really interesting. At one point, Darby throws a bat to Sting and shit that literally looked like it was out of a movie.
There was a lot of shit that looked like it was out of. I mean, it was a cinematic match, but like the shots in this were really good. Mm-hmm. Like that one shot they had where they were in the ring and then they just kind of zoomed over to Darby and Brian Cage. I loved that. I was like, oh shit, that's cool. You use CGI and shit for this, because that wasn't like a shot. That was CGI.
Yeah, they went all out with this. I would love to see this with no commentary. I know that you had said you don't really mind the commentary, and it wasn't bad. I don't want to act like it was bad. I would just love to have seen it with no commentary and a little more dialogue between the four talent involved. I think that can be an interesting way to do cinematic matches as well. So
I think that's like the current WWE style of it, but I didn't mind this at all. I thought this was like a wrestling heavy cinematic match, and I was really into that.
WWE kind of does that, but they also still do commentary over it, which then makes it all types of fucky. So I think that this was done fine. I think Taz helps a lot in something like this for some reason, because he just had the ability to say like off the cuff kind of random shit that helped fit
Yeah.
like an honest reaction to someone watching it rather than them just trying to commentate what's happening. So that was good. And again, it's a nitpicky thing, and I don't even know if it would be better. I just want to see it in that way where it's just the raw action, no commentary. That would be cool to see. But this was fun. There was really nothing to complain about. I think they did a great job at showcasing this. Yeah, this was and it's very smart to not do this live like they did the Matt Hardy thing. I don't know if they've learned their lesson or what, but because you remember when they did the Hardy compound, we anticipated cinematic, and we kind of got cinematic, but it was live. So yeah, this was better than that.
Mm-hmm. You know, this was beyond better than that. This was beautifully shot. Great lighting, great color grading, really film heavy editing.
Shout out to
shit
Darby.
going on.
There was apparently Darby had a big hand in this. He utilized some of his film background in this. So someone on Twitter had commented like WWE should take a note from AEW on how to create a cinematic match. I think it would be very interesting to see Darby partner with Giancarlo, who now works with WWE, and make some type of cinematic match, because those two have clearly very interesting ways of putting together professional wrestling in cinematic ways with like video packages and stuff. So that was just something I had randomly thought about when browsing Twitter during the show. But yeah, this was a great match. Let's talk about the main event. You know, the main event went well in the beginning. The match itself was good, and it wasn't
match
even
itself was great.
It wasn't even as dangerous, I would say, or as bloody, or as crazy, or anything that I had necessarily anticipated. Probably because their lights out match was just so nuts. I thought this might be crazier than that. I don't know if the idea was for this to be crazier than that, and it just didn't come off as such to us, or if the idea was to make a death match in theory less crazy than a lights out match. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Oh no, I do, and I think it is the latter of what you said. I do think though, with all that being said, they still stayed true to the death match. They still stayed true to the barbed wire exploding death match, because those matches aren't as bloody or light tubey than as you would expect from death matches. Like
sort of, you know, I agree, but I disagree. Like I because you're right, but I've also seen some where they are. So it's tough.
Yeah, I have too, but like a lot of them that I've seen, one or two that I've seen, I should say, because it's not like I'm an exploding barbed wire deathmatch connoisseur. But the ones, there are a few that I've seen that it's just a regular match, you know, cool bumps, big spot into the barbed wire ropes, and then you go home. And so I'm not like saying I was disappointed. I kind of expected light tubes, not gonna lie. I heard death match, I think light tubes, but I wasn't surprised when there weren't, and I wasn't surprised that it was all barbed wire. That makes sense. I mean, that's what you build. And so I wasn't like let down or anything. I thought the match was great. It really is just the ending that I was like, oh.
It was rough, and for me too, and probably anyone who might have been going to YouTube this last week or whatever to watch some of these death matches. Like I've seen not this finish, but a finish similar to this, where the story is essentially the same thing. One guy is covering up the other guy to prevent him from the explosion. I don't know exactly which match this was, so I don't want to say if it was Onita and Funk or whatever, but I think maybe that's what it was. But at the end of the match, the explosion's about to happen. Dude covers up over other dude because he can't pull him out of the ring in time. Mm-hmm. That's essentially what we saw here with Kingston. So I was like, oh, this is the story we're telling. And then the explosion just wasn't. And I had remembered in watching that, I was like, that wasn't that bad. That's kind of weird. This was even less of an explosion than that. So I was like, that's kind of weird. It was also kind of weird to me that the explosion was still happening after the match. Like, I don't know if that's common in these match types, but I think it's kind of a stupid thing.
Yeah, you would think it would not happen. That's the point,
like,
right?
The match is over. I don't know why there's still a time bomb attached to the match. That's my only big gripe with it, beyond the obvious explosion, anticlimactic situation. And I don't blame them. It's either a matter of they're within their limits of what they can do, and that's totally understandable. You can only have such a type of explosion surrounding a match, or there was a technical glitch, or probably a combination of the two, where it was a technical glitch and it would have never been as big as people would have wanted. I almost appreciate the AEW fans for giving it to him for real at the end. Where there was a solid boo at the end of that. Like,
Yeah.
then afterwards they started chanting again for Eddie Kingston, which, like, cool. The AEW fans are serious, dude. They will play along with what's going on and try to give it as much of a positive response as they can. And I think they did that even with that finish, because in WWE, that would have got ripped apart. And maybe with a full crowd, that would have got ripped apart. But they gave it a decent response outside of that initial boo.
My cousin was like, maybe it looked good from the stands, and I was just thinking, nah.
Yeah, it just didn't come across very well. It was very anticlimactic. I wish that it wasn't the finish, because you didn't have to do it. You could have had him destroy him, no explosion whatsoever. Maybe Eddie Kingston comes out to save him anyway. They both get tossed into some barbed wire. Everybody goes home sad because two guys...
It would have been way better if they just threw him into the board.
Like, just tossed them both in.
Handcuffed him and throw him into the board? That's fucked up enough for me. I'm good.
Yeah, and yeah, it would have just been much better that way. I guess I think I like the building of a bond between Kingston and Mox. That's cool.
I do too. But it
came across so awful.
It was so bad.
And, like, what a shitty situation for Kingston to have to sell it, for commentary to have to sell it, and not just immediately be like, well, that sucked.
Yeah.
So shout out to them for selling it the best they could. Kingston, like I said, was in a tough spot. The referee didn't know what the fuck to do. He was like, well, do I pull him off? Is he dead? What's going on? Finally, they figured it out. The match was awesome. The match was great. I was bummed that Kenny retained because I thought maybe Mox would pick up the victory. I thought they were going to go at least to the 30-minute explosion. So that would have been weird, though. And that's where, if you're doing it in the match and it happens like that, you could just keep having the match. Like, they could just be like, oh, well, that sucked, and at least the finish can still be bigger than that. If your finish is the explosion, it's kind of rough. So
yeah. And I was thinking, like, and when it happened, when it ended before the explosion, I wasn't upset because I was thinking, like, okay, the explosion wasn't going to look good, so they didn't do it. And then they did it anyways, and it didn't look good. And I was like, oh, well, that's not good.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense, yeah. And it's tough because I don't want to sound super negative. Like I said, the whole rest of the show was great. The top of the show was amazing, opening with Maki Ito. The Christian signing is dope. Like, he's going to really help the rest of the roster. I think there's going to be some fun stories you could tell with him. I think that personally, and this might even come across as a little weird, but I'm even more more excited about the Ethan Page signing just because it's a fresh young face. So
yeah.
But the finish was just rough. It's very anticlimactic. They didn't have to do it necessarily. It was very strange, and it's very hard to be honest about it and not kind of bury it.
Because you're not gonna say anything that anybody else isn't already thinking. And really, the honest truth is, it's just kind of sad because it was such a good show and everything was going so well, and then that happens, and it just kind of takes the wind out of your sails. It's hard for us to come on being pumped because it was like, fuck.
Yeah, and the thing for me too is, Mox was like, well, I'm not going to come into AEW and do this cookie cutter bullshit. And the thing is, I totally get it. Like, this is pretty much what you get at the finish of typical death matches. This is why I don't really like stuff like this. And the crowd did well at selling the explosions and the stuff with the barbed wire when they were getting tossed into the ropes. That
looked great.
Yeah, that stuff was solid. But even that stuff can come across as kind of gimmicky and goofy if done the wrong way. Like, I've seen it in, all I could think of is Wrestling Society X, where they did like an electric cage match
and they
or
make
something.
the camera go like,
yeah. And so in calling for an exploding match, I was like a little nervous to even begin with because of what I've seen in the past. So the fact that that's what it ended up finishing the show with, that's what everything is going to be played on social media. There's really nothing else that's going to come out of this outside of that being the remembered thing. It's a bummer. It's a bummer to be Mox and Kenny, who just put your bodies on the line and destroyed your bodies. And the thing that everybody's going to be talking about is the fact that there were bad sparklers and
sad.
pyro at the end.
It's upsetting. It's disappointing. That's the word for it.
And there's no one that I don't pin the blame on, even Tony Khan
No.
or anybody, because I don't know necessarily where it stems down to. I appreciate them taking the chance with this match, giving it an opportunity, but you didn't. And maybe do something similar in the future where it's not exploding. You know what I mean? You're not necessarily leaning into having to
Just a
utilize
barbed
special
wire
effects.
death.
Yeah, exactly. Just do barbed wire. So overall, though, Revolution was a great show. We're on a new path with AEW that I think is going to be very interesting, adding two very nice signings to the roster in Ethan Page and Christian Cage, both very talented superstars who are going to, again, add a lot just to the wrestling, I think, aspect, and maybe even the creative storytelling aspect as well, because both guys are pretty decent in that realm as well. So there's a lot that comes from this show that is positive. Kenny Omega retaining the championship, pretty much putting to bed this situation with Moxley, at least for the time being. So hopefully we're going to get a new story coming from Moxley, or for Kenny, which is going to be very interesting. I think we might not see Moxley for a short bit. Probably won't see Eddie Kingston either. I think they're supposed to be dead. I wouldn't blame them if we saw him this week, though, because it didn't look that bad.
Yeah, it didn't look bad at all.
But I could totally get if the story is that those guys are going to be missing for a little while. So
I think it was Cass who said in our chat, Brock Lesnar's pyro killed Eddie Kingston.
pretty much. So that's the only tough break there. Overall, again, like I said, a lot of guys come out of this event looking strong. Jungle Boy, John Silver. Like, there's a lot of positives that we can hang our hat on with this show. AEW can hang their hat on with this show, and that we can discuss more than people. And I get it. People will focus generally on the negative of the explosion. That's going to become a GIF. That's going to become a Botchamania thing. It's going to be all over. AEW is going to have to really deliver on Wednesday now to just take the thought off of that, which I think they will, and won't be too hard, again, with people like Maki Ito involved and Christian involved, Ethan Page involved, being able to
they'll
get
bounce
more.
back from this in like a week.
Yes, I agree 100%. And we'll see. I'm curious to see what the rating will be for Dynamite coming out of this pay-per-view. I could not give a shit about what the pay-per-view buy rate is. I know that people will care about that. I know that will be a discussed thing. But every time I see it, I'd only believe it to an extent anyway. It takes so long for those numbers to even come out that I cannot care, because it's just paying attention, waiting forever for Meltzer to report on something that then every other website will report on. So when we see those numbers, we also will report on them, but I'm not hoping for 200,000, 500,000. Like, I don't know. Probably 100,000 like usual.
Yeah.
So, great show. Pretty good show. Decent ending. Not the best ending. That's it. That's what we got. AJ, let them know where to find you. We're wrapping everything up. We appreciate everybody for tuning into this episode of the podcast. Like I said, we didn't get as many people commenting on YouTube, so if you listen to this podcast weekly and you're interested in winning a Dustin Rhodes figure, tweet at us at All Elite Podcast. Let us know you tuned in, and we will put you in with whoever else tweets at us and get you an opportunity at winning those figures, and we will do that on the next episode. We'll do the random generator. Shout out to Brandon 3915996 whatever. He has won the Rio figure. I will be getting in contact with you on Twitter on sending that to you. Thank you for participating and retweeting, everybody. Now, AJ, you can let them know where to find you. We can wrap things up.
You can follow me on Instagram at AJTheFitzy and on Twitter at AJTheFitzy.
Yes, I got it fixed for you on the stream, too. That's great.
Ooh.
You can find me on Twitter at Upstate Andrew and on Instagram at Andrew Kazir. We'll be back on Tuesday to run down the Dynamite card, give you guys any updates on any news regarding AEW and their recent signings, any stuff like that. You can find the podcast on Facebook at facebook.com/AllElitePod. We're on YouTube at youtube.com/AllElitePodcast. If you're watching us there, make sure you smash that subscribe button, brother. You can find us on Twitter at All Elite Podcast and on Instagram at All Elite Everything. Until next time, thank you guys for tuning in with us. See ya.
Bye.
All I see is marks and carnies.